You mentioned Mercedes. So P2 and a lot of money is still up for grabs in the constructors with Ferrari and Mercedes battling it out. In the last four races, Ferrari has outscored Mercedes by 36 points. Ferrari outscored them again in Suzuka 20-16. Laurence, what did you make of the decision and how the race ended for Mercedes team orders to swap those cars?
Yeah, it was a slightly controversial one. I mean, George, I'm not sure realistically would have been able. Well, he couldn't hold off science obviously once this got past, but I'm not even sure it would have worked out well for them if they'd tried to use Lewis as a buffer in between. So to protect the most amount of team points against a rival, I think they probably did have to swap the cars. Whether then Lewis could have given George a bit of DRS, as George pointed out immediately, and as Carlos did to great effect in Singapore. Maybe there could have been a bit more cooperation there, but even so, he ended up he did give George DRS down the straight, and Sainz still got past. So yeah, it's a battle that's really heating up, and I think it's very good news for Ferrari because they've really unlocked something with that car, and basically just making it basically a happier car for the drivers to live with, and seems to ride curbs better than it used to. So there's a lot of positive things, even on high downforce circuit like Suzuka, where you wouldn't normally expect it to be very good based on what we've seen at other tracks. It was still relatively competitive behind the McLaren, but ahead of the Mercedes. So that's a big step for them. And then Mercedes, I think they're now in a position where so much is going towards next year, as it should do, really. But they may end up compromising themselves this year and perhaps losing that second place in the championship. But if it means extra development time on next year's car, of course, I think all development from now in terms of starting projects is absolutely on next year's car. But if it means they've changed that earlier in the year than perhaps Ferrari did, and they're just now running out of steam a bit, well, that's part of Formula One, and really for a Mercedes team to be third this year, but then have a better start next year, as long as it happens, because they're talking about completely changing the car in many aspects, then I think that's the best overall decision. But it's got to be tight. And, what we're also seeing from Ferrari is fewer mistakes in general, just fewer operational errors, better strategies. And I think actually what we're seeing now is probably more of what that car has had, the potential it's had throughout the year, but more focused now on actually getting results. So, well done to Ferrari. And I think if they just nail the end of the season, they can beat Mercedes on pace.
It's not as drastic of a turnaround, obviously, as McLaren, based on where McLaren was starting the season. But still, I think Ferrari deserves a little tip of the cap based on the turnaround that we've seen mid-season here, based on the performances as of late.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.